So if you guys need your answers filled with questions as far as freshwater aquariums go, no matter what, it has to do with freshwater aquariums because let's face it, there's lots of ways to keep freshwater aquariums. And sometimes we need clarity or just a little advice to put our minds at ease because sometimes we worry about a lot of things that we really don't need to worry. And sometimes we overdo it, and sometimes we're on the right track and just want that like peace of mind to know that you're on the right track. So that's what this is all about, is to help you guys out with your questions with keeping freshwater aquarium fish. And welcome, and hope you guys are all doing great. If not, as always, hope it gets better for you too. But glad to be here with you guys. Let me go ahead and get into the top chat here. I don't miss them. Or no, I need live chat. My bad. All right, hello everybody in the chat. Good to see you guys in here. Like in the earlier start of the Wednesday. Glad to hear it. Yeah, 9:30 is kind of late, but Fridays aren't so bad. But for me, these Wednesdays been working out pretty well. Still kind of getting used to the whole schedule of it, but as far as time and what I've been able to get done so far, I feel like it's really going to make a difference here in the future with how things mesh together. Because keeping hundreds of aquariums isn't the easiest. Although that's probably the easiest part of my life. Although sometimes they can be time consuming, especially whenever I'm trying to reset and redo things and moving things for breeding projects, changing things that I've been doing. Well, hello, everybody coming in. So I hope you guys have some questions. As far as all the orders last week, thank you guys so much for all your orders and your support. Appreciate it. Those are all out on their way. Should have your tracking number and your email. Thank you guys. And then also websites updated. Got a Rutu's on there. I'm surprised nobody picked up the pair of blue Gloris last week. I've only got one pair. Really good pair. I'm surprised they're still there because usually whenever I mention they're on the website, maybe the right guy just hasn't heard that they're on the website yet, but they are. Would like to see them go to a new home soon, and also those Una Maculata, Betta Una Maculata. Glad to have you come in here, Lisa, for your first time live. Yeah, we do these every week. I actually do these more often than most shorts anymore, which I'm hoping to change that. Long form, hoping to do a lot more of that. It may not be like the flashiest or jazziest, but there are certain things I want to share with you guys that not everybody may be doing, like breeding wild bettas without any filter and just like the last for you guys, and kind of community breeding and just different things you can do within this hobby. Kind of more niche, but let me just say there's a lot of videos I got to work on. I got a list. I just got to get to it. The infamous Marty Marr says, "Hey Lucas, by any chance do you have any pencil fish in stock?" So I do not have any pencil fish in stock. I don't really breed them. I have one tank that has some of the coral red pencil fish. I believe those are all that I have. And I don't really focus on breeding them. They would be quite a bit of work for me to really get into breeding. No, so everything that I do have in stock, it's all homebred. So it's not like I import fish and have a ton of this, have a ton of that. It's what is bred in house, which you know, it's as a business point. Like I could probably make a lot more money importing, just because I would have like a stock consistently. But as far as like how I want to do it and what I provide to customers is a whole different experience because the stuff that I do breed out, like this is really healthy stuff. These are things that you don't have to worry about. Oh, did they catch something on their way, or from the farm, or get over medicated? They're really healthy. The immune systems are good. I really focus on making sure the genetics aren't interbred as well. Actually, spending a lot of time in that sort of genetic diversity and stuff. I do a lot of things that a lot of people, especially if not on YouTube, you really do, because that's where my passion lies. I think it's good for the hobby. Unfortunately, I can only do so much with it too because there is so many fish out there to keep and breed. But sometimes when you ask me about pencil fish, makes me wish I did like import sometimes because I would love tanks full of pencil fish, but unfortunately, I'm not into breeding them. Lisa Avery says, "Are they a breeding pair?" Yes, they are. Need jazz hands, Lucas. Yeah, that's probably not helping with the signal. Usually doesn't. Can't help but talk with my hands sometimes. Got a Great Lake says, "Do you have any of your fish registered with CARES as endangered fish?" So I don't. I probably could, but I don't. Lisa McGrath says, "My 135 long is heavily planted from low light to newly medium high light plants, and I was wondering, is there a par light spectrum chart to help with placement of plants? I have a par meter." So I'm sure there is. I don't really know personally just because I never really got into all that. I mean, actually, I did for a while. Tom Barr, I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of him. Dude's like a light wizard when it comes to plants and planted aquariums. And I can imagine he's probably put something together. So there's probably something on the web somewhere, but I couldn't tell you specifically. And that's probably something I should probably revisit myself because I know a lot of my issue with my aquariums, and then also I know like the full concentration of iron and sulfur doesn't help either. That comes from my well water. Yeah, I'm sure there's one out there. Thank you, Crystal. Stowell. I appreciate that. That's best stock in the country for sure. Which there's actually more on the website now than there ever has been. But it is, as far as like variety, there's only so much. Unfortunately, I need more tanks. I'm working on it. Boardman said, "I recently accidentally hatched about 30 neon tetras almost a week ago or so. I'm trying my best to keep them alive in a 5-gallon sponge filter and heater. They seem to be doing great with no feeding." Well, that's good to hear. They're probably eating off of the little microorganisms. I notice this a lot with a lot of my baby fish, but there is a point where you will have to start feeding them. And sometimes, and what I do is I'll take like the food that I already have and just crush it into like a fine dust with my fingers. That way, even if they don't eat it, the microorganisms can eat off of it and keep them going. Because even as it like dissolves and disintegrate, like parameciums and things like that can eat off of it. Especially if it's a no filter. I mean, sponge filter too. Is like so a sponge filter keeps a lot more of the microorganisms that the fish can eat than per se like a hang on the back or a canister filter that could get filtered out through the cloth. Leopardo says, "Lucas, how's the outdoor tub cover project going?" So I didn't work on that at all this week. Actually spent some time with family. We had one of Sarah's nephew moved down near us, so he came down and visited, and then also we spent a little family time on the beach. But saying that, this week I am planning on getting back into digging holes and putting in posts, and I got a lot of them to get into the ground. And it's gonna take some time. Actually, well, yeah, I think I am because, well, I don't know. Try it. There will be a lot of rain this week, so we'll see. That's all weather depending. No, I'm probably gonna be doing water changes and moving more fish. I gotta get to getting all my intakes in for all my new tanks too, sooner or later. Beto Great Lakes says, "Have you ever used Reishi as a carpet, and is it a good way to use it?" So you can do Reishi as a carpet. I'm currently doing it. Usually easier to do with CO2 than without, but growing it with CO2 and you're trying to do it as a carpet, you can get it to kind of stay somewhat dense and get like more of the crystals and things within your water change. But if you're doing it without CO2, it will turn like a dark green and look more kind of like a stringy moss, but a bit different. So it really depends on how you grow it out. But you can, just sometimes tricky. Because a lot of times it does want to float if it hasn't transitioned to that certain point. Boardman says, "First bites ordered will be here tomorrow. Maybe good. Thanks so much. Love your videos." Well, thank you, man. Yeah, those should be. And then I would crush them up because they might still be a bit big for their little mouths, but it will help. Wish like I had a thing down here where I could scroll your guys' chat. I'm glad that it actually went into horizontal view this time. Okay, I have been wanting it to be. Lisa McGrath says, "I have two long fins, no white plecos coming." Ooh, nice. Info is mixed. Some say care the same as all bristlenose, and others are like, no, it's way more delicate. Thoughts? So I would say the only fact that it would be a little more delicate is because of its long fins. So you're going to want to be careful when moving it around in your nets and make sure that they don't like, sit on their fin wrong or something like that. Something that could cause injury. But besides that, as far as like parameters, care, should be the same as any bristle mill. Shouldn't be that much of an issue. But those are beautiful fish. I've actually been wanting some of those. But when it comes to fish, there is a lot I want, and then like I've got to be real sometimes. I don't know if you know, but I've kind of got multiple tank syndrome, and I am a bit addicted to aquariums. It's a little tough to pick and choose sometimes. 3G says you can clean sponge filter and bucket, let solids settle and skim surface and feed the fry. Yeah, that's a good option as well, 3G. Thanks for mentioning. That way you get kind of the more natural food. You get even that detritus, those baby fish will eat off of that detritus. Matter of fact, a lot of their gut biome is that detritus, that mold, that brown stuff. Joey Lowell says, "Help, I just saw my thermometer broke and I'm worried that the mercury will kill my fish. What do I do?" So they actually do find mercuries in streams very common. The way that it sits out, if you see it, I would definitely turn off your filter. That way, whatever mercury is there can settle to the bottom and you should be able to siphon it out. Just don't drink it or swallow it on accident. Make sure that you get your siphon started first and then move towards the mercury because brain damage. But mercury is heavy, so it will sit down towards the bottom and just do a slight water change. Like it's not gonna like mesh into the whole chemistry of your water. Like mercury sticks to itself for the most part. But dilution is the solution always to those sorts of things. And I wouldn't go too crazy. I would just do like 25%, 50% water change, depending on what you find in your actual aquarium from it. But Great Lake says, ever had a pike killifish? I haven't. I've seen them in person. I mean, they're pretty neat, but I don't know. Not really my type of fish. I'm more into like peaceful fish than I am the predatory type fish. But they are neat. Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Greg ate mercury? Oh no. All right, I am at the bottom of the chat, so you got a question, that's where I'm at. I mean, now is the time to ask. Besides that, I don't even really know what to ramble on tonight. I'm not big on small talk. Give me something deep to talk about now, that's different. Joe MTL says, I bred red and orange cherry shrimp. I culled the offspring and kept it light green. Would this green also be considered wild if I introduced red? Really, what would colors would appear? So with red and orange, they're more dominant genes, so they tend to pass down and be more prolific than, like, say, a green or light green would be. And if you were to introduce a red really to that, very commonly you would probably get more red and orange offspring and some reallys and a potential mix of it all in one. But the commonality of those genes that come out would take aligning and separating, which usually takes multiple tanks, and you pick out the ones you want so they can keep passing that genetic more aggressively down the line over those more dominant genes. That red and orange really. Aquarium Fantasy, good to see you in here. Says Lucas, how was your week? It was pretty good. I cannot complain. I actually feel real refreshed after spending some family time and really motivated to get into things and just be prepared and like really do what I'm doing. And when I've been doing something like this for so long, to really keep like that motivation and to have motivation, I feel blessed for. Because, like, let's face it, over the like winter, I really didn't have that much motivation for it. And, I'm, I'm a deep thinker, so I spend a lot of time in my mind, and that can be healthy to an extent as long as you're not like overdoing it. But, anyways, I'm excited to be doing what I'm doing. So, thank you for asking. Ford Man says, I have a 55-gallon that I'm planning on setting up as a community. I'm comfortable with sponge flippers. What should I do for substrate? Thick, I'm thinking. I mean, thicker the better. You don't have to get too crazy with it. But, say about yay big. It's good, about 3 inches. 55-gallon. It's pretty long. So, yeah, I would say about 3 or 4 inches. You do peat gravel, you could do sand, you could do all kinds of stuff. And when it comes to like substrate, I often think about what I'm going to be putting in the tank. So what I put in the tank dictates a lot of whether I'm going to use dark substrate or if I'm going to use light substrate. Because if you're using like real colorful fish and you want them to pop, black tends to be better favored to get like those extreme colors to really pop. Certain fish, like darker fish, like a black ram or things like that, tend to pop better on a lighter substrate. So that all depends on what I plan on keeping on it. But if you're going with community tank, I would say black's always the best option for that color contrast. TM Reptile says, Just got my fish room initially set up, 18 tanks and more to come. Awesome, Team Reptile. Congrats. Have any tips for keeping that many breeding tanks? You know, okay, I will say this. I started with 1 tank, then I moved to 3 tanks, and this is over a couple years, you know. It took me about a year to get to 3 tanks. And then about a year after that, I went to 6 tanks. And then about a year after that, I went to 14 tanks. And about a year after that, I went to 30 some tanks. And about a year after that, it got up to hundreds at some point, and it still is. So, what I'm saying is, what you will do is find a way through the art of keeping fish and aquariums, and by experience and learning and more trusting, especially into nature and what nature does. And this channel really helps with that, especially if you want to really let your MTS, multiple tank syndrome, run, is by understanding like more of how nature operates, what's better for the fish, especially if it's breeding. You know, you're not going to be setting your tanks up for aquascaping. You're going to try to make your fish as comfortable as possible to make them want to breed. Um, so by doing these things, you have to practice them. You have to also learn your systems as far as, okay, doing water changes on this day makes it better for me. Because let's face it, it takes discipline. And if you don't have the discipline to do it, then maybe that's too many, or maybe you're multiple tank syndrome, and the way that you do your processes through keeping your fish room. Like for me, for instance, I don't sit there and check and test all my water. Do you know how much time I get saved by not dealing with all that? By trusting my water, knowing my water, and understanding it saves me so much time. And you know, it's just a journey, and I think that you will find it whether it works for you or not. So I would say about the best tips for keeping that many breeding tanks. Like for me, if I were to keep 18 fish tanks, I don't know, that's crazy. That's kind of crazy to think about. 18 tanks. I don't know if I could do it. It would be so hard to figure out what to keep in 18 tanks. Kind of wild to think about. And I know for most people, like that's a lot of tanks. But for me, that's a bit different. Let's see. Screw. At least some grasses. I have some spiderwood in my 135. Will this be detrimental to my snow white plecos? No, I don't see why it would be. Any pleco, especially bristlenose, they like some wood. A leaf litter is always good for them too. You want something really good for your plecos? Give them some leaf litter. Those are great. Let's see. Fordman says, I live in South Carolina. I want to put some wood in it. Would most oak and things be okay? What state should I introduce? State should you introduce? I don't know, but oak's fine. As far as wood, like of course your heavier woods are gonna sink better than like your lighter woods. And you could also like say you got a piece of wood that you really like, you really love, but the thing just wants to float. You can get a drill bit and drill like a little piece of tile or slate, or even a rock, a flat rock, and you can get a bolt and screw that on the bottom and hold down your driftwood for you. Excuse me. I may or may not have eaten a whole pizza during for lunch. I mean, today. Let's see. 3G says Ford Man Black Diamond at Tractor Supply looks nice. Interesting. Aquarium Fantasy up to 140 tanks now. That's quite a bit. Getting up there, bro. Really collecting them. I'll tell you, man. I know what it's like to collect that many tanks, and it's hard to find that many tanks. Like, it takes a while to gather that many up. Lepardo 0573 says, Lucas, did you see the made an appearance in the Aquarium Co-op rice fish video? No, I didn't see that. Interesting. I have to check it out. But thanks for letting me know. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have that much time to watch everybody's videos and hard for me to keep up. Lisa McGrath says, I recently topped up my sand substrate with some pre-washed and stored in buckets over the winter. Unfortunately, there must have been some bacteria growing and I forgot to rinse. Fish started gasping. I did an 80% water change. They are fine now. Should I redo substrate completely? I would say whatever's in there, you might have diluted. If you see them gasping again, then I would probably change it. But it's really hard to tell what would have caused that gas. Especially, I don't know where you were keeping it for over the winter. And if it was still wet, then maybe there was some molds in there that could have caused more of an issue than, like, say, a bacteria or something. And if you diluted that, hopefully you got that out of its system. And I would say as long as they're not gasping, it should be all right. But yeah, if you're letting substrate sit in a bucket like over months, you're better off like rinsing it or letting it dry out all the way. That way that you don't have those bad bacterias or mold spores and stuff trying to hibernate in. But once you flush them out like within the system, and then microorganisms and things can get to them, it's usually not an issue. That's the thing about microbiology and the beneficial bacteria and stuff, is they actually battle a lot of the negative things. So as long as you got a lot of the positive things in your aquariums, then the negative things don't matter so much. So you want the positives to outweigh the negatives. Hope that makes sense to you. Glenn Wilson says, when you coming to SC again? I'm not really sure. Good question. Yeah, 13, 15, 18. I mean, that's a good amount of tanks. Like, I remember when I had the 14 tanks kind of scattered around, and like, it was a bit. It was a bit at the time. But then I had to start developing like systems to make time and efficiency and all that thing. So, I mean, it all depends on what you want from it. But I feel you guys at the 10 and 20 tank range. Like, I know that MTS level so well. So, I totally feel you guys. Like Missoula Aquatics and Plants says, if I order blue galars, can you delay shipping for a week or two? I can. Just send us an email and let us know. I'm just ready for them to go to a new home and somebody hopefully work on breeding them. Or enjoy keeping them and how beautiful they are. Welcome. Aquarium Fantasy says, Lucas, what was your first tank size and what did you have in it? So, growing up as a kid, I'm not going to count all those. Actually, that's not true. So, really, my personal one that was actually mine was between like high school and middle school, which was a 29-gallon. And then I ended up going to and did all that, got graduated, and then I wanted to get back into it again. And then again, my first tank size was a 29-gallon. So to me, I feel like a 29 gallons a reasonable size where it's not like too small or like way too big. But then I remember my second tank was a 10-gallon because I was getting into like breeding the golden winter killifish because once I found out about those and then the pair that I had, like I've got to do something with these, and then that's when I fell down a big rabbit hole of breeding fish. At the same time, I was doing CO2 plants and all that stuff, and then I ended up getting a 40-gallon. And to me, that 40-gallon was huge, was absolutely huge. And I love 40 gallons. Still one of my favorite all time sizes for a tank. Matter of fact, if my barn was bigger, there would be more 20-gallon highs and 40-gallon breeders. There would be a lot more 40-gallon breeders if my barn was bigger. But collectoritis, I had to smash in as many tanks as I could because there's just so many fish I love to keep. Not only breed, but just to keep. I don't know. It's weird that I like to keep them so much, but I do love them. And when you're like, I guess when you're trying to keep genetics and keep things mixed up and keep things strong and good, you end up having to need a lot of tanks. Um, and then I started getting in. Then I got a 75-gallon, and that's like almost 240s. And that thing was a monster. Then I moved up to like a 180 bow front behemoth. Had grown a huge Anubias in it. This one massive Anubias. It was like this huge metropolis. Had a sump filter, all that stuff. And then the MTS started really kicking into like, okay, I want a bunch of smaller tanks. I'm gonna do this, gonna do that with shrimp and fish, and so I mean it kind of worked its way up to graduated. But yeah, 29 gallons. Those were my first ones. Let's see. Pretty sure I'm getting everybody's questions, but if I haven't and I missed it, I'm sorry. Aquarium Fantasy says, Lucas, how many tanks do you have? I haven't a clue. Like if you don't count those little containers that I have, I know what the little containers and especially the tubs, I'm like way over 300, I think. If you're not counting those, because I'm actually probably going to retire those containers just because I want to do different things with the spaces. And I don't know, it's kind of a pain to feed them all the time because they do have lids on them. And I'm trying to stay away from things that need lids and have to have lids. So I don't know. That's a good question. Definitely a couple hundred at least, if not just aquariums. I think in the barn there's close to a couple hundred, and then in here, quite a few. It's been a while since I counted. Let me just say that. I don't know. Do tubs count? I think there's like 50 of those or so. There's a bit. Old fashioned whiskey says, "Hey 3G, now we're on." Oh, talking to 3G. I just saw the question mark. Went in. Full Ron Burgundy. JP Jeffrey says, "What can be said about keeping enough oxygen in a no filter tank? The higher the bioload, the more dissolved oxygen levels needed. Plants can create high enough level without surface agitation." So In my opinion, and from what I have experienced, I believe fish do not need as much oxygen as we think they need. Same with shrimp. I have tested this with not doing water changes. So usually, if I'm doing water changes, it reoxygenates the system quite a bit. Now, although I believe plants play some role in some reoxygenation, I don't think they really play that big of a role as far as on a level that you can actually see. That and also how plants absorb oxygen at night. I think other things happen within the substrate and beneficial bacteria that can have some connection to that. But from my experience in the dissolved oxygen thing, like I think that it's more of a marketing ploy than something that's needed so much. Now, saying this, if you're like a big fish farmer breeder or you just want a stupid amount of fish in a tank to where they're like clamoring side to side for space, then you can keep more with more oxygen. But I've got a 20-gallon high in there that has or had up to 60 Tilnatherinia alani rainbow fish in it. Same with other tanks where I've had like 60 trout gutias in a 20-gallon high. Same with guppies, and not even without, or not even with plants. So as far as what's needed with the oxygen, I think there's still so much to be learned and studied from that, we're still kind of in the infancy of it. So yeah, I don't know. They don't. To me, they don't really need it as much as I think as they say. Like you look at ponds. Look at a lot of ponds and creeks when they dry up, and how many fish can live in there. A lot of it's having biologically sound water and those good beneficial bacteria and things like that to keep a healthy cycle and ecosystem. Chris, well, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Much appreciated and always helpful. Because I've always got some fish I'm wanting to buy. And I'm excited. I got some of the ones I ordered last week and then hoping to be getting these new ones here in a couple days. I'll be excited to share with you guys. One set of fish that I got was meant to be bred. Then another one, if they breed, they breed, but these were more for like show and just something that I've always wanted for the longest time. Although I'm a breeder, like I said again, I'm a keeper. I tend to just buy fish for myself, not to always breed. Scroll. As far as surface agitation in a no filter tank, like not really necessary. And reptile. Rosie says, Lucas, I have a 37-gallon tall. I will be getting a Congo spotted puffer. Could you suggest a fish that's peaceful and stays at the top a third of the tank? Thank you. With a Congo spotted puffer, ooh, I don't think I could answer that question. Just for the pure fact, I don't have enough experience with how well they would do with other fish. And so if you're just buying him meals, I don't want to be the culprit of that. I don't know. If somebody can help her in the chat, if you guys have experiences with Congo puffers, or even after, if you're listening to this, leave it in the chat after the video if you're not here live. Because I'm kind of curious myself what she could keep. I would sit towards the top. and live with Congo puffers, because not all fish have it that easy with puffers. And the Congos, I know they're not like real aggressive, but they're aggressive enough. I've only seen them in species only. But a Great Lake says green water in a cup with snails that smell like sulfur. That's bad bacteria in there. It depends on where your water comes from. You know, sometimes well water just smells like sulfur. You'll get that coming in through there, but often enough, if it smells and it's a small container, it probably is bad bacteria. So I would flush that out. So my whole thing, if your tank smells and it doesn't smell good, like there's a difference between like a earthy smell and a difference between like a rotten smell or something that just doesn't smell right. If your tank does not smell right, you have an imbalance somewhere. You either have a fish that died in there somewhere, and or you fed too much food into the tank, and or you're having like a bacterial bloom or something happen. That is when like all your beneficial bacteria has died off or something and is fouling up the water. Now, keeping my no filter aquariums like I do, that rarely happens. Rarely ever happens where I have those issues, because they are mature, they are balanced, and they stay balanced. But yeah, in a small system like that, and what's probably causing that smell is since they're just in a cup, it's a just a bunch of snails. They have put out a lot of waste, and the green water feeds off of ammonia. But what beneficial bacteria are feeding off the rest? So, like, you have levels of probably nitrates and stuff like that because you may not have enough beneficial bacteria in there to feed off of that. So then sometimes other bad bacteria can. Mario Valesco says, "What's up, Lucas? Finally got some Jesus Marie fry. Those things are super cool fish. They are. They are. Actually, I got a ton of them going on right now. I need to collect them at some point and offer them again. But glad to hear they're breeding out for you. I love them. First time I saw those, I was like, Jesus, Marie." Let's see. Lisa McGrath says, "I recently had my CPD spawn and I have 11 new babies for future. Wanted to grow some green water. Firings. I had a vinegar ills culture. They are small. How to make green water?" So if you want to make green water, the best way to make green water is like take some grass, crush it up into some like softer water, and or just whatever water you have, and then just put a lot of highlight on it. You don't need a filter or aerator or anything like that. And as it breaks down, then all that like chlorophyll and waste will start turning into green water. And it's kind of funny because that will help cause green water. Let's say you wanted to battle green water, if you took something dried out like hay, it could actually help kill green water, because there's something on some different microbial levels of what's eating what, and it's kind of wild how it works in duality and vice versa that way. But yeah, highlight and some broken down plant material, and then just give it some time, let it settle, let it ferment to its green water self. And Carla, my goodness, Carla M, thank you so much for the $10 super chat, Carla. Much love to you. Carla's the best. She's been around here for a long time. She's like a OG subscriber. Following the journey. She's been here forever. So much love to you, Carla. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. And with feeding like those CBDs too, like once again, crush up your food into like fine dust. That helps feed them as well. Because even if they don't eat it, parameciums, other microorganisms that they may eat, detritus worms, ostracods, cyclops, things like that can eat off of it too. Blue86 says, "Hi Lucas, do you use any fertilizer for your aquariums?" Thanks. So since I got a lot of iron and things that naturally come in through my tap water, I really don't. But say if I was using like RO or something, I definitely would be fertilizing because you gotta like bring all the levels of what you want to have in your tank if you're running a clean slate from like RO. So since I don't really fertilize much. If I were to fertilize anything in my plant room, it would be the potassium. It would be my macros, so my magnesiums and my potassiums, because there's already heavy amounts of iron and stuff in there. So knowing helps a lot. I definitely recommend if you're gonna get into fertilizers, learn about the EI method of fertilizers. That's your estimated index. And once you wrap your mind on that, will give you a better perspective of how to deal with not only your water but other waters. Because you can learn like maybe this water doesn't need this because of this. Because there's like estimated amounts for certain biomasses of your plants as well. Always think about, do I got fast growers? Do I got slow growers? How much uptake are these plants going to take for fertilizers? So, like, say you got a tank full of stem plants, like they're going to eat up more fertilizers. That fertilizer is going to be more useful for them than like a tank full of anubias, where you don't even really need your fertilizers. You're just kind of dumping money into your water because they grow so slow and don't really need it so much. I hope that helps you. Well, glad to have you back, Kathy Kirkham. Good to see you. Looking like a Floridian now. Yeah, definitely get my Florida on. Hard not to with that sun out here. My nose actually has been peeling real bad. Simple Tank says, "What type of endlers are in your thumbnail?" So those are the Vienna guppies. And there is actually a few on the website right now. LRBAquatics.com. Carla, a member for 17 months. I know you've been around for a lot longer than that. Frame Fantasy says, "Does Lady LRB have a favorite fish?" I don't know. Lady LRB, do you have a favorite fish? She fall asleep? Always put her to sleep on this time. You think so? She did. Yeah. I don't know. I think she would say the rope fish. If I hadn't put her to sleep, she would have probably said the rope fish. I have been looking for that puffer idea. Still not seeing anything yet. Lepardo says, "Lucas, what is your opinion on Pearl Daniels? I like their barbels. Those barbels are cool. I absolutely love Daniel's barbels, where at their mouth they kind of hook down. They look like the old kung fu master with their little, what is that, a Fu Manchu or something? I don't know what they call that, but they're really neat. So they love to spawn into rocks, kind of like glow light Daniels I've been working with. All those Daniels, a little rock pile to spawn in, and you could either put it into a bowl, let them spawn into there, or they have those egg catchers. They're really good with those 3D printed egg catchers, and or you can play musical fish with just a rock pile on the side and then move them to another tank. But really neat fish, really hardy. They don't really care soft water, hard water. Fun to watch. Danios are absolutely really fun to watch. If I had enough tank space, I would like to get into the giant Danios again. Those things are freaking cool too. I've always wanted like a big tank of a lot of those. Just I've never gotten that chance to. I love that earthy smell. Yeah, if your aquarium is good shape, like it will smell good. That like real good earthy smell. It's like what it should smell like. Lisa McGrath says, do weekly 50% water changes, ABS's filter with the FX spray bar setup. Thoughts? I would only do like 25% water change. 50% is quite a bit. Maybe you're doing too much. Because every time you change that water, it's got to reset into the new water. It's got to rebalance itself. So the less that it has to rebalance itself, the more stable it can be. But nothing wrong with the FX6. Definitely holds a nice beneficial bacteria load. That you get any impurities into that tank, and you keep that tank, um, or you keep that filter somewhat dirty. And really, the dirtier the better you keep that filter, better it'll be for you. I don't be cleaning any of those tank or those filters if I had them, and when I had them. And not just to be lazy, they would literally clarify the water so much better than if you were to just clean it. Because if you take one of those filters, especially a FX6 that holds that much beneficial bacteria in it, then you wipe all that out of the system, it's going to cause you problems and you're going to have water quality issues. You'll be lucky if you don't end up with a white cloud water or green water. Mike Reardon says, Lucas, I picked up 10 platinum rice fish back in May, moved them to an outside tote, 50 gallon, and put in a few breeding mops. So far, no eggs. 3 weeks in. Is it too hot for them? I'm in Central Florida. So, I don't know what's going on while you're not getting eggs. Is there another place that they could be laying them in your system and not on the mops? They may be preferring a different spot that's within that system, but you should still be getting eggs. I'm still getting eggs. Fishberg says I need AI to do birds. So that's unfortunate, in my opinion. And this is where a lot of skills are going to get lost with conveniences of AI and artificial intelligence needing to do things for us, because if we need it to do everything for us, we're not going to truly have understandings of what we're really doing. And therein lies a whole nother thing that yeah, I don't know, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But if it helps you with your first, I mean, it could still give you a idea of how to maybe get to the concept of it faster. I guess it depends on how you use it. But a Great Lake says the guy that bought your old house is in the fish keeping business. He is. He's still doing it. He said website's still up. I don't know if anything's still in stock, but last time I talked to him, it was. Yeah, and with my Madakas outside, like I've got certain ones that they're always breeding on the mops. Some never, never, and they're probably just laying them in the dirt. I don't know. I'm like, why aren't you guys breeding? Lake Missoula Aquatics and Plants says, "Are you breeding pygmy sunfish currently?" I'm not like purposely in an aquarium, but I know they're breeding out in my pond somewhere. So I don't really do the Florida natives now. I am keeping some Florida flagfish, but they didn't come from my all that native stuff. I don't get into. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of ripping things out of nature and putting them into an aquarium. It's different when you breed out and raise a fish that's in the aquarium. That's its life it knows compared to like something you strip from the wild and put in an aquarium. Oh, and you do have pearlweed in that tank also. Yeah, they're all over that pearlweed. Canal Rad Jimbo says, I have never had a tank, but I'm ready to try after years of research. What do I do with my water when I first pick up? I've never tested it, but it just knows it's going to be trash because it tastes nasty. I want to do a dirted low tank natural system. So, if you're in the city, I don't know if you're on well water or city water. If you're on city water, you're more than likely going to have to dechlorinate it because it's probably got chlorines in it. Yeah, city tap. There you go. So if it's a well water, you wouldn't have to worry about that. But since you do got that city tap water, you can either use something that dechlors it. Some people use Prime. Some I love the Wetco. It was just a couple drops, or just go to your fish store. They'll have something for it. And or if you want to make it super easy, and you're not afraid to install a carbon filter onto your house line, that carbon filter will take out the worry of that chlorine water, and it would actually be better for you to shower in, clean your dishes and stuff. It works for the whole house. So it will get rid of that nastiness in your water. And having that dechlorinated water is what you want. And get your aquarium, get that dechlorinated water in there, then kind of let it mature for like a week or two, and maybe put in a fish or two, see how they do. And if they start doing good, then you can just start adding to the. And then once you have that going, the ball is rolling, and really that simple. If you want to add and modify or play with this, that, get like special kind of plants, things like that. Um, which not all plants are special like needs as far as like, there's a lot of harder to keep aquascaping plants out there compared to like something like common plants like you would find on my website. They're more easy to keep. And then just try to create a comfortable ecosystem and home for your fish. And a best way to think about how you're going to set up that dirted low tech natural ecosystem is think about the fish that you are going to keep in there. If you have a plan of like a certain type of fish you already want, try to set it up more towards their biotope. Learn about where they come from, and you can mimic where they come from. The more like natural behaviors and other things that will come out for them. And then you may even end up breeding them, and then that'll send you down a whole nother rabbit hole. But sounds like you've been doing research. You said you've been researching for years. Now you just got to pull the trigger and actually try to ride that bike. Carbuyer says, how does a male fish fertilize the eggs without hands? I mean, I can fertilize the female without hands. Pretty sure they use some of that schmegma. Leopardo says, Lucas, do you still plan to collect those natural glass shrimp from your backyard pond and try to breed them? Yes, I actually do. I would like to do that at some point. I'm glad you reminded me. There's a lot of things I would like to do that I'm always like, oh, if I do that, that'll be awesome. Well, I'll do this, this will be awesome. And then there's so much picking and choosing through what I have to do or what I can do, which is a good thing. But yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. I need to do that at some point. I could at least put them in like an outdoor pond or something. Best Aquatic says, when we have more mascara barbs for sale. You know, I wish I had some for sale, but I don't even know if I'm gonna end up breeding them this year because there's an Oscar in their pond, and I need to figure out what I'm gonna do with him. Either I get rid of him, which I potentially could this weekend, or just let that Oscar keep going. I don't know. I need to make a video about it too, though. Like, I feel like I got to make a video about that Oscar before I can let him. And I think I would still have enough time to breed out those barbs, but I'm also sitting on like my last group of them. So if anything were to happen to them, oh my god, just kind of hoping they would naturally breed out a little bit. But I've been a little bit hesitant to put them outside too, so let me say that. On a rad, Jimbo says, I want good, sturdy, hardy plants like pearlweed. I want to lean on heavy planting to help stabilize the system. Yeah, that definitely helps. For sure. But a Great Lake says, the shipping fish cost different for every state. I'm in Chicago. How much would it cost to get here? So it's usually 15 is the standard for the most part. Now I think it might be like 12 or something to certain areas. Chicago, I think, is like more towards the 12 range. So for shipping for fish, it's actually really cheap. Some of the cheapest shipping for fish. Leo Pardo says, do you have any tips for keeping Java moss healthy? Low light. Keep them in the low light, and water changes help. If they try to float, try to knock the air out of them so they don't float up, because if they stay floated too long, and they'll try to transition into the emerged version. I think I've confused them a little bit, but for the most part, that's about it. Pretty easy, easiest moss out of there of all of them. All right. Scrolling. I set up a 4.5 gallon betta tank with fluval substrate. The Java fern and Anubias is melting. Any tips on how to test feed them more light? So if you just got Anubias and you just got Java fern, more than likely that, especially if it's like a usual, let me say, like an importer or something like that. If it's an import, all that stuff's grown out of the water. So when it gets in water, it will melt back. As long as you got new growth showing, then it'll transition from that old growth into the new growth, and then it should be healthy again. So you just gotta let it go through that melting stage of getting those old leaves off. Well, thanks, Best Aquatics. Yeah, I need to Probably actually get. I was thinking about that last week, whether I should get into breeding those barbs again before it gets too cold here. Just the tank that they're in too is just like this big biomass of star grass and guppy grass, and trying to catch them out of that and not resetting like the whole bioload and ecosystem of that tank and not disturbing it is a high challenge. And I really don't want to risk those guys. And I know it'd be a while till they come back in, but I could keep a goldfish in there to keep them cycled through too while they're gone. I may do it. We'll see how things go. Okay. Boardman says, should I raise the leaves out of the water? Of what is that? Anubias and Java fern? No, I want it. You want it to transition to the underwater form, because if not, you're always going to be fighting that issue. And once they transition to their underwater form, then you won't have that problem anymore. Just what imported plants do. And that's why I like plants like mine. And that's why I do a lot of what I do. So if you're getting plants from me, you don't have to go through all that kind of stuff. Because they're not imported. They're all grown underwater like they should be. And the M says, my tiger antlers through a solid male. Have you ever seen that color? I've never seen a tiger antler through a solid male. Can't say I have. I bet that looks pretty cool though. Al Lauricio says, I bought 3 young golden wonder killifish and ended up putting them in a 29 cherry barbs platies, and they grow. Will they eat my barb? Fairly big. I don't know how big your barbs and platies tend to get big enough size where they shouldn't get eaten. So it depends on how big they are. Just make sure you have a lid on that tank, because they are notorious jumpers. And you don't want to find them on the floor someday. That would be your biggest problem. But yeah, if they're young and, even if the cherry barb's got time to grow too, always just think about the fish's mouths. With golden wonders, they can really expand their mouths quite a bit. As long as the fish can't fit in the mouth, should be good. And they tend to pay more attention to themselves. They're not like real high predators. Fan Fantasy says, Lucas, how are the mascara barbs? They're doing good. They're doing good. But like I said, I probably do need to get them breeding here sooner than later. I would hate to throw them out there and then them not breed. And then there's also frogs out there in their pond too. And that's a big reason why I put the Oscar out there, was hopefully to get the frogs out of that pond. And I do feel like there's less in there. And then I was gonna, especially if I get it screened in time, definitely would put the barbs in there. But I don't think I'm gonna get it screened in time weather-wise to be able to do the barbs this year without having to worry about them. As far as them in the fish room, they're doing good. Yeah, and to see how are yours? You got like a fry or extra going? To get my money up, I'll have to throw some your way if you have some, because I would like to have backup genetics and a backup tank. What's up, Fish Face? Been a while to see you in here, man. All right, well, we are over the hour mark, and I still haven't eaten dinner yet. I don't see any questions either. I think I caught up with them all. I appreciate you all joining. Hopefully, you guys have learned some things that have helped you. And I will see you guys on the next one. And I will be bringing out more content for you guys. So stay tuned. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. All that jazz. Until next time, everybody. Peace. Da 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 da. Wesley, where you at?